Hi guys, Pete and Abby here from the Therapy Crouch, and we're sponsored by Starbucks Chilled Coffee.
They're all about lifting up the everyday for those fleeting moments where you get to do something just for you.
I'll grab one after the school run or on my morning walk.
And you'll find the delicious full range in the chilled aisle whenever you want something smooth, bold or sweet, whatever suits your mood. So go on, treat yourself to Starbucks Chilled Coffee. Find your faves, buy them online or at your local supermarket.
Redeem your Ladbrokes on free bet spins or even cash in for real money. That's Ladisfaction from Ladbrokes. And for extra Ladisfaction, here's the T's and C's. Let's rock!
18 plus. Participate in selected promotions to get Ladbrokes. Whoa, get Ladbrokes. Redeem them for offers or rewards. Ladbrokes expire. Full T's and C's apply. Take time to think. GambleAware.org.
For one night only, you could play the Traitors Live experience alongside former Traitors players and other famous faces at a special evening presented by Claudia Winkleman, raising money for comic relief. You could take on the likes of Rochelle Humes, Nish Kumar, Rosie Jones and Scott Mills, and legendary players including Linda, Mina and Diane. For your chance to enter and to see full T's and C's, go to comicrelief.com/traitors. This message was brought to you by Comic Relief in partnership with the lovely people at Acast.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital? Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Port Charles 411. Today is Lucky and Liz, part 33. Lucky, part 41. We're getting close. We are now in January 18th through February 13th, 2010. 45. I think the number will be 45.
I was going to say, he's going to end up being like older than us. His numbers are going to be higher than our age pretty soon.
I was literally just thinking, I'm like, wait a second, he just turned 43. So maybe we should do 43. It's not going to be 43.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not crazy. We're the same age. He just has a birthday first. But we left off last episode where Jonathan Jackson had actually just come back. So it was the first scenes with him. Well, it was a longer period of time, but he had come back right after Lucky and Liz had gotten engaged. So we saw them working on like rebuilding their relationship and working on the trust. And then of course he overhears Nikolas telling Liz how much he loves her. And Lucky puts it together and is like, well, that's new, and confronts them. And then Nikolas decides to leave Port Charles. And we left off where Lucky went to Windermere and found out that Liz was there saying her own goodbye.
A little differently than he planned on doing it.
Yes. But we pick up where Lucky stood just beyond the door frame, walking through a narrow opening as Liz and Nikolas kissed on the couch in the turret room. What had once been sacred, his relationship with Liz, the trust he placed in both her and his brother, fractured in that moment. He made a small sound as he backed away, unheard and ignored by the two inside. They never came to the door, never checked to see what the sound had been. It was clear their attention was elsewhere. Afterward, Liz and Nikolas spoke quietly, addressing as they tried to convince themselves that what they shared had meaning, even if it couldn't be real. Nikolas spoke about wanting a future with her, and Liz reminded him of the history they had, the friendship they had leaned on in hard times. You know, like when Emily died.
Uh-huh.
She urged him to start over in Paris, to create a life for himself that didn't involve her. Nikolas agreed to try, but admitted that he was in love with her and didn't see that changing. But while they looked to the future, Lucky was unraveling in real time. He returned home and opened the closet. He pulled out a baseball bat and then began to destroy the house. Glass shattered, furniture cracked under the weight of his grief. He spoke aloud to an imagined Luke, ranting about the illusions and betrayals, the warnings his father had always given about the nature of love and lies. By the time Liz showed up, Lucky was composed. The mess around him told a different story, but his voice was calm. He lied and said that he found the place like that. Maybe Luke was responsible. And this is when Luke was really, really, really drinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually when Jonathan Jackson's first scene with him back was Luke was late meeting him because he was hungover. So Liz wanted to call the police, but Lucky stopped her. When she offered to help clean he snapped, firmly telling her to leave it alone. The house would stay the way it was until he figured out what came next. Later, on a call with Laura, Lucky kept the truth buried. He didn't mention the turret room or what he had seen between Liz and Nikolas. Instead, he asked her how she lived with the knowledge that Nikolas carried Cassadine blood. As he spoke, he quietly loaded a gun. The calmness in his voice masked the storm underneath. At the hospital, Liz tracked down her brother Steve and told him Nikolas was planning to move to Paris. She saw it as a clean break, one that would finally allow her to move forward with Lucky. She requested the weekend off to spend time with him, hopeful that they could begin again. Okay, it is difficult to request a weekend off the week of in any industry that you work on weekends. Like when I was a server, you had to have it in like a month beforehand and you still might not get it.
Right.
She's a nurse and is like, hey, by the way, you know those 2 doubles I'm supposed to have on Friday and Saturday? Can I not do that?
Well, that's what happens whenever your brother is in charge.
That's true. Yeah. But at the airstrip, just before Nikolas and Spencer were set to depart, Lucky intercepted them. He asked for a moment alone with his brother. Nikolas was confused when Lucky said he wanted him to stay in Port Charles. After everything, it made no sense. Lucky pretended that he had let go of his anger. He spoke in circles, feigning interest, even sympathy. He acknowledged that Liz had been there for Nikolas after Emily's death and that their bond had grown stronger. He acted as though he trusted Nikolas again and even thanked him for being a constant presence. Nikolas, still uneasy, eventually agreed to cancel the flight. Lucky then went straight to Liz's house. She was surprised, even a little thrown by the news that Lucky had asked Nikolas to stay. He told her she was the only person who truly understood how much Nikolas meant to him. Liz didn't press. She simply said she'd support him and told him she loved him. When she leaned in for a kiss, Lucky pulled back, his body reacting faster than his words. He quickly recovered with a vague response and a polite kiss before walking out. Later, Nikolas showed up at Liz's door. She had invited him. She needed him to hear from her that what they had done had been wrong, that it betrayed the love and commitment Lucky had shown her. She told him that she had chosen Lucky. Nikolas said he'd go to Paris, but Liz asked him to stay for Lucky's sake. At the Haunted Star, Lucky offered to close up the casino for Ethan. Once Ethan left, Lucky approached the bar. He stood silently, staring at a bottle of whiskey, and then slowly he poured himself a drink. It didn't take long before he was drinking again. Still functioning in his job, Lucky visited Jason to step away from the Claudia Zaccara investigation. He said it was a conflict of interest, though he gave Jason a critical piece of information. Maxie had been parked outside Kate's mansion the night Claudia vanished. Jason knew something was off. Lucky rambled, talked about perspective, choices, and consequences. Okay, so that's similar to Christina being parked outside of... What was Christina parked outside of the night that... with the gun?
I don't know.
Last year, the gun that Alexis got rid of for her. Jagger. Remember? Because Christina said that she had driven up to the gate.
Oh, okay, but she never went in.
She never went in, and she didn't do it.
Right, but they caught her on camera. They caught her on camera, but they don't catch Willow sneaking in to mess with Daisy.
That's a whole other thing.
They caught her on camera in the driveway, yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, this is the same thing. It's, now Christina was parked outside of Kate's mansion the night that Claudia vanished. Jason knew something was off. Lucky rambled, talked about perspective, choices, and consequences. He admitted that Jake and Jason had both suffered because of Liz's secrets, but Jason pushed back, insisting Liz had always loved Lucky. That landed hard. Lucky's eyes filled with unshed tears, but he didn't say more. Back at the casino, Ethan informed Lulu about Lucky's drinking. At first, she assumed the empty bottles were Luke's, but Ethan shook his head. He knew enough about addiction to recognize a relapse. Lulu thanked him for telling her. When Lucky arrived later that night, Lulu confronted him. He didn't lie. He admitted to drinking, but insisted it wasn't a big deal. No pills, no theft, no secrets, just alcohol. Lulu urged him to call his sponsor, and he refused. She asked why he'd risk everything when he was about to marry Liz. Lucky deflected and said he wasn't the one throwing anything away. He reached for the bottle again, and she tried to stop him. But Lucky was clear. If she didn't let him drink there, he'd find somewhere else. She let it go, and he took a long drink right in front of her. She told him he was just like Luke. After she left, Lucky kept drinking alone at the table. Luke returned later and found his son deep in the bottle. Lucky welcomed him with sarcasm and waved a piece of paper, Lot 17. It was the land where he and Liz had once planned to build a life together. Looking his father in the eye, Lucky said he finally understood. He was just like him. Luke didn't look proud.
Back at the hospital, Liz and Nikolas ended up in the same elevator. The energy was awkward but civil. Nikolas offered to step down from the hospital board to avoid adding more tension, but Liz said there was no need. In time, she believed they could all heal. Like, seriously, you're never going to go to the hospital again? That doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Right.
That night, Liz was home when Nikolas dropped by again. Lulu arrived moments later. She didn't sugarcoat it. She needed them to know that Lucky had started drinking. At the Haunted Star, Lucky told Luke he knew about the affair. He had figured it out, and he felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. Luke admitted he hadn't said anything. Lucky told him it wouldn't have made a difference. He wouldn't have believed him. After learning the truth, Lucky couldn't stop replaying the moment in his head, walking in on Nikolas and Liz. The shock had been total, but it was quickly replaced by something colder. Luke was the first person Lucky confided in, confirming he had witnessed everything firsthand. Luke admitted that he had known for some time, had seen Liz and Nikolas kissing on the docks and confronted them both but had kept their secret. Liz had convinced him not to say anything. Lucky didn't seem surprised. Deep down, maybe he always knew something was off. Now with the truth out in the open, Lucky reflected on all the signs he'd ignored. Things that once seemed like minor shifts in behavior now screamed betrayal. Luke gently asked what he planned to do with the knowledge. Lucky's answer was simple and blunt. He was going to drink, and he did. That night, he gave in to the bottle and offered Luke a rare apology for not listening, for resenting the warnings. Love, Lucky realized, hadn't saved him, it had broken him. Luke tried to steer him towards a more nuanced view, reminding him that love was flawed, never perfect. But Lucky couldn't shake the belief that he had failed and that he had been chasing something that was never real to begin with. He couldn't define what Liz wanted anymore, only that it wasn't him. At the same time, over at Liz's house, Lulu confronted her. She had just seen Lucky drinking at the Haunted Star. Liz was shaken. She and Nikolas both were. Lulu laid blame directly at their feet, particularly Nikolas, for declaring his feelings and setting this all in motion. Liz insisted that the decision to drink had been Lucky's alone, but she didn't try to absolve herself from the guilt. She remembered how chaotic it had been the last time Lucky fell into addiction and worried they were heading into the same dark place. On the docks, Lulu was still trying to process it all when she ran into Dante. Clearly rattled, she opened up about Lucky's history with painkillers, how drinking wasn't even the worst of it. She mentioned his previous affair with Maxie and explained that Lucky had always loved Liz, but she didn't love him back. Lulu took on more blame than she should have, but Dante reminded her that Lucky's relapse was his own. Still, the guilt weighed heavily. Meanwhile, Liz tried to take action. She planned to reach out to Lucky's sponsor, hoping to get ahead of the full spiral. But before she could, Lucky walked through the door, drunk, cold, wounded. Liz asked him to get help, go to a meeting, but he brushed it off. The way he saw it, Liz had finally made her feelings crystal clear. He told her exactly how he'd found out, how he'd walked in on them. She tried to apologize and insisted it was over, but it was too late. Lucky wasn't interested in apologies. He was unraveling. Nikolas tried to take responsibility, even asked Lucky to direct his anger at him, but Lucky's fury wasn't so easily redirected. What Nikolas had done cut even deeper than Liz's betrayal. Lucky didn't see his brother anymore. He saw a Cassadine. Their shouting match was interrupted by a knock at the door. Carly had stopped by with an invitation to Jocelyn's christening. It was the worst possible timing. Liz begged Lucky not to say anything, but he couldn't resist. Carly left as quickly as she arrived, her curiosity satisfied and her appetite for gossip whetted. After she'd gone, Liz pleaded with Lucky not to drag the boys into it, but he was far past reasoning. His words turned vicious. He accused her of destroying their family, of poisoning the life they had built, and then, just like that, he was gone. After the blow-up, Nikolas tried to console Liz. I feel like that's not a good idea. But she was hollowed out. She told him to leave and, once alone, smashed the coffee table in grief before collapsing on the couch in tears. Elsewhere, Lulu went to General Hospital looking for information on Al-Anon meetings. She also questioned Epiphany about missing pills, wondering if Lucky might have slipped back into old habits. Epiphany shut that theory down quickly. Nothing had gone missing from the hospital, and reminded Lulu that Al-Anon wasn't a fix for Lucky, it was a lifeline for her. Carly, meanwhile, wasted no time hurrying to Jason's place to share the latest drama. He didn't want to hear it until she connected it back to Jake. Carly, never one to miss an opportunity, laid out a case for why Jason should consider fighting for custody. Back at the Haunted Star, Lucky reappeared. Luke was waiting and poured him another drink. Lucky told him everything, how he'd confronted Liz and Nikolas, how the ache he once felt for Liz had gone from something beautiful to something hollow. He didn't feel sad or anger anymore. He felt nothing. Luke, seasoned in heartbreak and disappointment, told him that kind of numbness might be a gift in the short term. The real emotional storm hadn't hit yet. It would. Luke warned him, people ask too much of love. No one else can fix your life, not even someone who loves you. But he believed Lucky would pull himself back. He always did. Meanwhile, Liz sat alone in the dark, replaying her own choices, asking herself how everything had gone so wrong. I think I can answer that question, Liz.
I was gonna say, this is not just the first time, girl. And we love Liz. See, this is the crazy thing. I was actually thinking about it as we were doing the research because we love Liz. Just why? I mean, we understand, but why?
Yeah.
For one night only, you could play the Traitors Live experience alongside former Traitors players and other famous faces at a special evening presented by Claudia Winkleman, raising money for comic relief. You could take on the likes of Rochelle Humes, Nish Kumar, Rosie Jones and Scott Mills, and legendary players including Linda, Mina and Diane. For your chance to enter and to see full T's and C's, go to comicrelief.com/traitors. This message was brought to you by Comic Relief in partnership with the lovely people at Acast.
Out on the docks, Lulu ran into Nikolas. She demanded that he help stage an intervention, only to learn that Lucky already knew everything. Her rage boiled over. She called her brother selfish, furious at how deeply he wounded someone he once claimed to love. Back at the Haunted Star, Lucky reached for the bottle again. He said it was easier this way, living in the moment with nothing left to lose. But Luke, watching him carefully, offered one last warning. A man with nothing to lose is a man with nothing to live for. Oh, Lulu, fiercely protective of her brother, took her rage straight to the source, or rather, one half of it. Her anger, though directed at Nikolas, was largely aimed at Liz. She accused her of hypocrisy, of pretending to live a virtuous life while betraying the man who loved her. Nikolas tried to shoulder the blame, but Lulu refused to let Liz off the hook. It was an ugly scene, and Nikolas, shaken, didn't offer much defense. He admitted to his mistakes, but it was too late for apologies, and the damage was already done. Later, that same storm followed Liz into the hospital. She arrived with an injured hand, only to be met by Lulu once again, this time in front of half the nursing staff. Oh, so was Liz also at the pier? I thought that it was only Nikolas.
I thought it was only Nikolas also.
But she did say that her anger was largely aimed at Liz and accused her of hypocrisy. I thought she was just saying that to Nikolas. But okay,
I think
anyway.
I thought she just said that to Nikolas and then she found Liz at the hospital.
Okay. Lulu humiliated her publicly, calling her every name she could think of while others watched in awkward silence. Liz didn't fight back. She stood there and took it, letting each insult hit without resistance. Eventually, Ethan stepped in and ended the scene. After Liz's hand was treated, he offered her to drive home, noticing that she wasn't in any shape to do much on her own. Liz accepted quietly. It was the kindest gesture she had been shown all day. Even in private, Liz didn't try to defend herself. She believed she deserved the consequences, both the looks and the whispers, and those whispers followed her everywhere. At the hospital, she could feel them, judgment in every hallway and every elevator. The pressure built until, without warning, Liz snapped. In the middle of the nurse's station, she blurted out the truth. Yes, she had slept with Nikolas. Yes, she had betrayed Lucky. Her voice cracked, her eyes brimmed with tears, but she didn't hide. She stood there exposed. And when Nikolas tried to lead her away, she pulled back. She wasn't looking for comfort. She wanted to face it, every bit of the fallout. It was her punishment, and she intended to bear it. Meanwhile, Lucky was dealing with the fallout in his own way. He met Luke out in the woods target shooting, because when someone is starting to fall off the wagon, we go play with guns.
Mm-hmm.
His aim was precise, and his words sharp. He wasn't planning revenge, not in a literal sense, but the weight of what he had lost was still pressing down. Luke tried to talk him through it, offering support the only way he knew how. Lucky was far from healed. He didn't want vengeance, he said, but there was nothing left to fix either. Later, he crossed paths with Ethan on the piers. He also had that coming on because he just found out that Ethan's his brother. Yep. Sheesh. Seriously, poor Lucky. He was the Brooklyn Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
We just beat him up left. No wonder he left. Ethan, trying to bridge the gap between them, told Lucky he was available, whether for a drink, a drive, or just someone to listen. Lucky appreciated it more than he let on. The relationship was complicated, but even Lucky knew he couldn't unravel entirely on his own. Then Liz appeared. She had been thinking about calling him, but seeing him there gave her the moment she had been searching for. She asked if they could talk, and Lucky didn't hesitate. He looked her in the eye and said he never wanted to speak to her again, and then walked away. Liz was standing there with Ethan, holding back tears. She said she hadn't come for herself. She wanted to talk about the boys. They had been asking for their father, and she didn't know what to say. At the same time, the weight of Lucky's other responsibilities hadn't disappeared. He was still a cop, still expected to show up and handle other people's problems, even as his own life collapsed. His focus drifted to Kiefer Bauer, a privileged teenager with a violent streak and powerful parents protecting him. Lucky had been asked to look into a situation involving Christina Davis. Something didn't sit right, and while he didn't yet know the full story, the familiar feeling of something being covered up had started to gnaw at him. But none of that could quiet what was breaking down inside of him: his trust, his sense of purpose, his future with Liz. The pieces were still scattered, and Lucky hadn't begun to pick them up. The heartbreak had hardened him into something else now, something darker. At Kelly's, Lulu pleaded with him to join her for Jocelyn's christening. Lucky resisted. He had no interest in playing happy family in a church full of Port Charles' finest chaos agents. But Lulu pushed. She couldn't explain it fully, just said that she had a bad feeling and she needed her brother there. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Maybe it was the fact that for all his rage, Lucky still wanted to protect people, and he gave in. Elsewhere, Liz visited Luke on the Haunted Star. She came to apologize. Luke accepted it with unexpected ease, surprising her. He wasn't going to pretend to like what had happened, but he wasn't going to erase the years that she had been there for Lucky either. Then Lulu stormed in, disgusted to see Liz there. Liz chose not to fight and just thanked Luke and left. But Lulu wasn't done. She wanted to know why her father could show compassion to someone she saw as unforgivable. Luke reminded her the blame wasn't one-sided and warned her judgment had a way of circling back. Oh, I feel like we kind of need to get some of these little Luke-isms on rerun for Lulu.
Mm-hmm.
At the church, Lucky arrived early and found himself sitting in silence, talking to God, asking why this had to be his life, why this kind of pain. He didn't feel loved, he didn't see a path forward, and he wasn't sure he could keep the promises he'd made, especially to Jake. Jason showed up. He didn't say much, but listened. Lucky admitted he had no idea what was coming next, only that whatever it takes, it wasn't going to be good. By the time the christening started, Lucky was holding it together, but just barely. Even Carly had something to say, offering sparkling cider while dragging Liz's name through the mud. Luke shut it down, reminding her she wasn't exactly a saint herself, which Lulu quickly brushed off by claiming at least Carly never pretended to be. Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Later, Lucky was at Jake's drinking. Mac found him there and wasn't thrilled to see a beer in his hand. He warned him. He'd seen what heartbreak could do to a man. He'd lost Felicia to Luke, after all. Mac didn't want to see Lucky lose himself now. Lucky snapped back. He wasn't popping pills, just taking the edge off. Mac said work might help. That got Lucky's attention. Mac gave him an assignment, questioned Dante about the shooting at Greystone. And then this is when Sonny shot him. This was right ever. You just shot your son! Go listen to our 8-part of Dante to get all of that.
Mm-hmm.
In Dante's hospital room, Lucky turned on the recorder. The story Dante gave didn't sit right. He claimed he was unloading Sonny's gun when it accidentally went off, and Sonny arrived only afterward. Lucky didn't believe it for a second. He pressed, but Dante stuck to the story. Lucky knew what it meant, a cop lying to protect his father. He said he'd hoped the badge was worth it and walked out to report back. Meanwhile, at GH, Liz was unraveling. A simple interaction with a patient's mother set her off. She snapped, shouting about neglect and irresponsibility. Epiphany tried to pull her back, but Liz wouldn't stop. Nikolas stepped in and gently told her she needed time off. That only made things worse. Finally, he made the call. She was on administrative leave. Nikolas found Lucky at Jake's and told him about what happened. Liz was losing it, and the boys needed her to be okay, but she wouldn't let Nikolas help. Nikolas admitted he pushed her into the affair, that he was relentless and selfish, and now he was the wrong person to try to fix it. If anyone could help her, it was Lucky. Lucky didn't answer. He just kept drinking, and that's when Liz walked in.
Dun, dun, dun. She spotted him across the bar and approached quietly. Lucky didn't let her speak first. His sarcasm hit hard. Accusations, insinuations, cruelty. He wanted to hurt her the way that she'd hurt the way that he'd been hurt. Liz stayed steady. She told him she still loved him, still believed in them. She said Luke had forgiven her, that the good shouldn't be erased by the bad. She asked if there was any chance to fix things. Lucky shot it down. Therapy hadn't worked. Trust was gone. He told her to figure out who she really was without him. When she brought up the boys, Lucky flinched. He told her not to use them as leverage, but Liz was sincere. They were asking for him, and she didn't know what to tell them. Lucky said tell them that he loved them and that he'd see them soon, but it would be through his lawyer. They wouldn't be working anything out together. Not now, not for a while. He could barely look at her, and that was the truth that finally broke Liz. She left. Lucky stayed at the bar pouring more drinks. When Coleman tried to cut him off, Lucky threatened him. Coleman refused to gossip about what Nikolas and Liz might have done upstairs, but he did offer a warning. Pick at the wound long enough and it'll rot. Keep drinking and one day the numbness won't come. That's when people get reckless. That's when they convince themselves there's nothing left to lose. Look at Coleman giving out some great advice.
I know.
Lucky didn't answer. He took the shot anyway. Johnny Zaccaro was already several drinks in when he spotted Lucky at the bar. He wasn't in the mood to whisper. Loudly, he mocked the police for failing to bring justice for his sister, said it didn't matter how many people were murdered in Port Charles, nothing ever stuck. He offered $1,000 bet that Claudia's killer would walk free. Lucky said nothing, not until Johnny pushed further, accusing the cops of being either on the mob's payroll or too stupid to tie their own shoes. That's when Lucky moved. Fast. The bar went dead quiet as Lucky raised his gun and pressed it to Johnny's head. Everyone froze. Then, just as quickly, Lucky backed off. He lowered the gun, shook off the moment, and muttered an apology. Johnny sat back down like nothing had happened. Coleman tried to smooth things over with a round on the house. Ethan walked in mid-announcement just in time to see his brother shaken and unsteady at the bar. Lucky didn't hide it. He told Ethan exactly what happened. He'd nearly shot Johnny. No excuse, no filter, just the truth. Johnny, still smug, shrugged it off, said Jason would probably get to him first anyway. Lucky waved off his beer and demanded something stronger. Ethan followed him to a table, trying to reason with him, but Lucky was somewhere else now. The edges were starting to blur. He told Ethan he finally understood how someone could snap. The line he used to think had never crossed, it was right in front of him now, and he didn't know who he was anymore. Meanwhile, Liz made her way to the Haunted Star. She didn't have a plan, just desperation. She begged Luke to talk to Lucky, to help him see that she still loved him, that she could make things right. Luke listened. He didn't offer judgment. He understood her pain. But he didn't give her false hope either. He told her what she didn't want to hear, that sometimes love wasn't enough. Liz wasn't ready to accept that. She pleaded, insisting the affair with Nikolas was over, that she'd do anything to fix what she had broke. Luke stayed gentle but firm. He couldn't speak for Lucky. He couldn't repair what she'd shattered. That's when Lucky appeared in the doorway. He didn't speak, didn't look at her. Liz approached him anyway, crying as she asked him to just listen. She reached out instinctively, grabbing his arm, but Lucky recoiled, told her not to touch him, told her to leave. Liz's grief flared into anger. She demanded he stop shutting her out, but Lucky turned away. Luke had to step between them, taking Liz by the arm and quietly walking her out. Back in the office, Luke tried to shift the focus, told Lucky about a job he had lined up overseas, something bold, something risky, something distracting, an art heist in Prague. He even handed Lucky a passport, but Lucky wasn't ready to run. Not yet. He told Luke what had happened with Johnny, how fast it all escalated, how the same rage surged through him when Liz touched his arm. He said he couldn't trust himself. Luke reminded him he had pulled back. That mattered. The line was still there. Luke had faith in him, even if Lucky didn't. When Liz returned home, the silence of the house crushed her. She ran into her bedroom, then back down the stairs. She sat with her grief like it was something physical, slid her engagement ring back on her finger, and sobbed. Later, she returned to the Haunted Star, hoping to catch Luke. When she found the office empty, she decided to leave a note, but her eyes landed on a flyer, an advertisement for a Valentine's Day event. It hit her like a wave. Memories she'd buried years ago surged forward, violent, traumatic, uninvited. Ethan walked in and found her frozen, called her name more than once before she answered. He asked if she was okay. Liz didn't respond, not with words. Liz confessed that she'd wanted to apologize to Luke, to own the part she played in it all. But what was the point? Luke had warned her for years, and she was finally realizing what it meant when people said Lucky and Nikolas would never be the same. She tried to shake it off, but when she looked down and saw the flyer for the Valentine's Day event still crumpled in her hand, it triggered something deeper. The memory hit her all at once. 15 years old, waiting for Lucky at a school dance he never made it to. The park, the attack, the night that changed everything. And now here she was again, alone on Valentine's Day. But this time it was because of what she'd done. Trying to push through the day, Liz went to Kelly's to pick up an order. She ran into Sam, of all people. It was awkward at first, but Sam didn't lash out. Instead, she offered something Liz hadn't expected, empathy. Sam could see the pain that Liz was carrying. Liz thanked her, but it stirred something else inside her, envy. She'd watched Sam come back from things people thought were unforgivable. Liz asked how Sam had gotten Jason to forgive her, how she forgave herself. Sam didn't give her the answer she wanted. She talked about letting go of guilt, about taking care of herself. But Liz wasn't there yet. She reminded Sam of her own past, how she'd once stood by while Jake was kidnapped, how she terrorized Liz and the boys in the park. Liz wasn't trying to throw it in her face. She just needed to believe that forgiveness was possible, even after all that. But when Sam said it took time and self-respect, Liz shut down. She couldn't see a way through this. Not yet. And just across town, Nikolas was dealing with fallout of his own. Ethan confronted him, furious, not just about the affair, but how Nikolas had handled everything after. He accused him of pulling Liz into something she couldn't escape and then punishing her for the consequences. Nikolas tried to justify it, saying he'd cover her expenses, but Ethan wasn't buying it. Liz didn't need a payout. She needed someone who saw that she was falling apart. Nikolas stiffened when Ethan mentioned the crumpled flyer. That's when it all clicked. Valentine's Day, the park, the memory Liz had never fully been able to leave behind, and now, with Lucky gone, that pain had come full circle. Back at the hospital, Liz tried to return to work, tried to reclaim some piece of her normal. Patrick and Robin were sympathetic, but when she asked them to go to the board on her behalf, they gently refused. It wasn't what Liz wanted to hear. She was used to showing up no matter how broken she felt, but now it seemed even that was slipping through her fingers. Later at Kelly's, Liz walked in and spotted two men at the counter. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but in her mind, their whispers were brutal. Horror, slut. The shame closed in fast. She turned and ran. Jason saw her outside. He reached for her with concern written all over his face. Liz broke, accusing him of coming to talk about the time they'd slept together, asking if that was what this was about. But Jason didn't say a word. He just held her while she cried.
Across the water, Nikolas returned to Windermere to find Helena already in the parlor, pouring herself tea like she owned the place. She had that smug look in her eye. She had heard of the rift between the brothers, and she lauded the very traits that the Spencers find troubling: ambition, power, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to succeed. I feel like Luke supports those. That's been the problem, is that they both do those things just differently and hate each other for each other's successes in doing all those things.
Right.
Okay. Helena made it clear that Nikolas couldn't afford to slum it with the Spencers any longer, and urged him to step fully into his role as a true Cassadine. She hinted at a family alliance, promising they would move forward in tandem, a statement heavy with both opportunity and menace. Man, I miss Helena. This conversation laid bare the deep family divides as Helena dismissed Lucky's maternal family as unworthy and spoke disparagingly about Spencer's mother, Courtney, and Sonny, branding them as liabilities that tarnished the Spencer bloodline. Helena then pressured Nikolas to think seriously about continuing the Cassadine legacy with a true heir, reminding him of the weight that his bloodline carries. Meanwhile, outside of Kelly's, there was an emotional scene between Liz, Jason, and Lucky. Liz was overcome with guilt and confusion and broke down in Jason's arms. She wrestled with the crushing sense that she had destroyed her family, haunted by the affair and the fallout, that she's having this realization with the guy that she did that with the first time. Jason's reassurance was steady. He told her that she wasn't a bad person, just someone struggling through an incredibly tough time. But the fragile moment was shattered when Lucky arrived, his bitterness and pain spilling over into harsh words. To be fair, again, he was having the addiction and sleeping with Maxie, and that's when Liz went to Jason.
Yes.
Two wrongs don't make a right, but Lucky was in the wrong first on that.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky mocked Liz for turning to Jason so quickly after their split, accusing her of putting her needs above her children's safety and stability. His anger was fierce and cutting, a stark contrast to the man Jason knew. When Jason intervened, telling Lucky to stop, Liz finally stepped away, stunned by how far Lucky's pain had driven him. She thanked Jason for his support, but left the scene, leaving behind a family fractured and raw. Jason later confided in Sam about the encounter, expressing concern that the damage done by the lies and betrayal was changing Lucky in ways he hadn't seen before. That happens. When you completely break somebody,
yep,
they don't stay happy-go-lucky.
Nope.
He recognized he couldn't mend the rift between Lucky and Liz, but resolved to take care of his own path. Back in Liz's home, Helena made an unsettling and unwelcome appearance. With cold confidence, she entered Liz's house uninvited, forcing Liz to quickly shield Cameron and Jake by retreating with them to the bedroom. Helena's casual demeanor belied her intent. She left a small, ornate gold box on the side table, a token that unsettled Liz more than it reassured her. She then offered Liz a gift, hinting at control disguised as generosity. When Ethan arrived to confront Helena and demand she leave, Helena left with an air of victory, having rattled Liz deeply. Later, Helena returned to Windermere for tea with Nikolas, pushing her vision of family dominance. At Jake's, Lucky was deep in his drinks when Ethan stopped by, not to bother him, but to share concern over Liz's recent behavior. Ethan recounted 2 unsettling encounters with Liz, convinced she was unraveling. Lucky, however, shut down the conversation quickly, making it clear he had no interest in hearing about Liz's struggles. He wasn't wishing her harm, but felt she had made her own choices and wasn't about to invest in her suffering. Meanwhile, Liz's home stood ominously quiet and empty, the front door wide open as snow drifted inside, reflecting the chaos settling into her life. At Windermere, the Cassadine legacy weighed heavily on Nikolas and Helena's tense exchange. Nikolas was firm that Spencer would inherit everything, rejecting Helena's insistence that Spencer was unsuitable. She suggested that Spencer had only been acceptable while Nikolas was involved with Emily, but now that Emily was gone, Nikolas was free to find a woman who could appreciate his true birthright and bear him a worthy son. Nikolas refused to burden Spencer or any future son with the harsh upbringing he endured under Stavros and Stefan. Helena's disappointment was clear, but Nikolas stood resolute in his decision. Back at Jake's, Lucky poured out his anguish over how loved had withered and died in his life. He admitted to Ethan that his drinking hadn't dulled the pain or the what-ifs. He recalled the traumatic time Helena had drugged him, faked his death by planting a body in his apartment, then setting it on fire, leaving everyone to believe that he was gone. After a year of Helena's manipulation, Lucky returned to Port Charles only to find that Liz had moved on. He realized he had been chasing a past that no longer existed. Okay, she thought he was dead.
Right.
Ethan brought up Liz's history with Rick Lansing, and Lucky observed her pattern of being drawn to troubled men. When Ethan questioned why Lucky seemed less angry about Nikolas's role in the affair, Lucky acknowledged his fury, but pointed out that Liz had repeatedly chosen to be with Nikolas, even sneaking to Spoon Island or climbing flights of stairs during a blackout just to see Jason Morgan. Ethan suggested it might be easier to blame Liz alone, but Lucky insisted they both bore responsibility. What stung the most was the deception. Later, while playing pool, Lucky noticed a couple exchanging gifts and was struck by the memory of falling in love with Liz on Valentine's Day. Ethan reminded him of the painful moment on the Hornet Star when Liz saw a flyer triggering memories of her rape years ago. Lucky remembered finding her, injured and alone in the snow-covered bushes. They had saved each other then, and Lucky had believed that love would always mean trust and healing. He now realized he had never moved past that moment. He still saw Liz as that vulnerable girl, not the complex woman she had become. Though it didn't excuse what happened, Lucky was willing to accept his part in their undoing. Liz, in turn, found herself in the empty church where they had once exchanged vows as teenagers, because they did that on Valentine's Day. They did that on their first Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. That's when they permanent lock. The cold air swept through the sanctuary as she lit candles at the altar, memories of her brutal rape flooding back. She remembered Lucky finding her that night and offering to call his Aunt Bobby, a beacon of hope in her darkest moment. Now Liz wrestled with guilt, feeling her actions unforgivable and unsure if she could ask God for forgiveness. All she truly wanted was Lucky back to make their family whole again. Sitting alone in a pew, Liz shivered, tears filling her eyes as past and present collided. Moments later, Lucky entered the church. He hurried to her side when he saw her slumping, checking for a pulse in panic. He called her name, cradled her in his arms, but Liz remained unresponsive. And that's where we're ending today. I wonder if she'll be okay.
I hope he's able to revive her better than they tried to with what's her name? Oh my God.
There's a lot of people that they did not revive.
No, what's her name that just died?
Oh, Natalia.
Natalia, thank you. I could see her laying on the couch and them doing nothing, but I could not think of her name.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, I think Liz is going to be okay, but I'm not sure.
Fingers crossed.
I wonder what she's up to 15 years later. We'll find out on Monday to see if she's on this week's episodes as we recap.
Have a good weekend.
And we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to peer54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review. And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Peer 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at peer54podcast@gmail.com.
For one night only, you could play the Traitors Live experience alongside former Traitors players and other famous faces at a special evening presented by Claudia Winkleman, raising money for comic relief. You could take on the likes of Rochelle Humes, Nish Kumar, Rosie Jones and Scott Mills, and legendary players including Linda, Mina and Diane. For your chance to enter and to see full T's and C's, go to comicrelief.com/traitors. This message was brought to you by Comic Relief in partnership with the lovely people at Acast.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return, but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.